Shalom. Welcome back. We are dealing with part 2 of this month's Black History. If that's, appropriate to call, who knows, we may change some things. I want to begin piggytail back what we were talking about last week. We talked about this subject from a standpoint of diversity. And, this is what we want to make the highlight as we move forward. We want to focus in on what diversity is and why, it should stay the way. So let us examine Black history under the microscope through Yah's mind. We always have been taught by our fathers, our grandfathers, our teachers, our preachers, our elder, but we have to decide on how to move forward, how much to take. And we all haven't experienced this, and I really believe it's necessary that we all go through this process. So when we look back and look at our children, grandchildren, we have a sense of peace that we did the best we could. Sometimes we fail, or we feel like we fail, but at least you try. So Black history, let's see it like this. We have to see things as he sees it, or we will find ourselves helping the enemy or helping the opposition. And as we look at our people, things are not going the way they should be going. And as usual, I just want to remind you guys that, I'm always talking to my Torah family and my gospel family. So I want to introduce a principle that I've learned, my pastor taught me years ago, and it's called the first mention principle. And things change, people change. But the first mention principle is, as we read the Word of God, what is the first thing God said about this situation? The men can identify this. We give our children chores, and they try to get out of them. Sometimes, they use their mother to get out of it, whatever. Sometimes you just say, okay, don't talk to your mother no more. Don't do anything. I want you to just talk to me. And what it does, that brings about accountability. So when we're dealing with the Word of God, we have to understand that one day we have to give accountable for the things we've been given, entrusted to, and that's appropriate. And we have to teach our children this too. So the first dispensation that we found in the garden was innocence. They didn't know what sin was. Our children, from the time they're born, they go through the ages 1, 2, 3. We talked about that. At what point do they know they are wrong? At what point do they know doing this type of activity will get them in trouble? At what point do they sense, riding their big wheel or their tricycle in the street at 2 or 3 is wrong? So we had to give them, a pass because they didn't understand certain things. So if you go with the narrative that the Bible leads us to, Adam and Eve had not been, introduced to Satan yet. So there was no sin. So we call this first dispensation of innocence. But then, after chapter 3, the enemy, the devil, comes and he tempts Eve. She goes for the bait, and she gives it also to her husband. So immediately we enter into a dispensation of conscience with knowledge. And this is where we want to pick up, everything that you have knowledge about, everything that you are consciously aware that is good and bad as you've been taught in this realm. We have to, teach that to our children, and we have to, begin to position ourselves wherever we put to try to follow those things to the best of our ability. And Sister Keisha, I want you to read this John chapter 18, verse 37 and 38.
Pilate said unto him, What is truth? And when he had said this, he went out again unto the Jews, and said unto them, I find in him no fault. But ye have a custom, that I should release unto you one at Passover. Will ye therefore that I release unto you the King of the Jews?
Okay, so here's the deal. He asked Christ, what is truth? Why would he ask what is truth? Because he didn't know what truth is. And sometimes in this world, truth could look like, this is what it is. I mean, think about it. Think about all the people that were brought over on ship. I'm talking about the transatlantic slave trade. And when they got here, they were people's property. And it looked like it was truth. The children seen it as truth. So today we're going to start off, I'm asking you, Rick, what is the truth about these things as you see it?
About slavery?
Yes.
The truth as I see it about slavery, well, we don't want to minimize nobody's experience or nobody's family's experience.
Right.
We do know that there were a lot of atrocities that went on during that time period. Mm-hmm. The narrative of how or what or how these things came about varies from person to person. I'm usually one that's big on historical content, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, with historical content, I've learned that I've come to realize that a lot of what we came to believe about slavery was not necessarily true.
Okay.
When we talk about the content, like I said, I don't want to minimize what anybody's family or ancestor went through. Right. But I think a lot of these stories were put in place to pretty much steal land from the people that were actually thriving in the land at the time, right? Okay. So through generations of programming, you can tell these people that they're from somewhere else, and they will never come back to claim the land that they are rightfully due.
Right.
You got to look at and that's just going by events that took place here in America.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Hold that thought.
Like through history.
I want to get a woman's perspective. Based upon your knowledge and what you've been taught and your experience, I want you to tell me concerning this, what is truth? Because see, this is the underlying question that Pilate was asking. And see, to me, there's nothing wrong with asking something you don't understand. But tell me your truth, because when you get done, I'm gonna go ask him another question.
Well, my personal truth, I've learned different things due to religion, and then I've also sought out my own knowledge as I grew older. As a child, the truth is whoever's raising you tells you it is. Mm-hmm. Whether it be your parents, whether it be whoever you're around. So the question, what is truth? I guess it varies depending on who you ask and who they were around and who was a part of their upbringing. Now, me personally, I feel as though everybody should seek their own knowledge so they can put together their own perception of what they feel the truth is. Because if you're always told what the truth is, how do you know that that's what the truth is?
Exactly.
Which is probably why he's asking, what is the truth? What is truth? Mm-hmm. So,
real quick, I'm going to hold that thought. Mm-hmm. Rick, can the truth be a lie?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
What we perceive to be the truth, for years, what we perceive to be the truth is a lie. For years, they told you Christopher Columbus discovered America. Mm-hmm. To you, that was the truth. You know, and in a lot of cases, somebody would have told you different. You tell them, man, you stupid. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You don't know nothing. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? But in all actuality, that person is telling you, Christopher Columbus didn't They're telling you the truth. They are actually the ones that are telling the truth. So, yeah, the truth, it's funny because, the truth is only as big as your scope. Your truth is just that. It's your truth. Now don't mean that it's not factual, but your truth don't always necessarily equate, everybody else's truth.
Absolutely.
So it's more about the resources that you have access to, and which path you take on your, which path you go down to search out the truth. So the truth is available, but you have to work for it.
You have to seek for it. You have to find the real truth.
Right. Well, that depends on what you're talking about. If we're talking about in the context of history, you have to search for the truth.
Okay.
Because, like I said, you're given narratives. Right. Okay. This is what most people have to realize. Most people in these United States are a conquered people. You know what I mean? Whether they're white or black, Irish, they are a conquered people, right? And when you are a conquered people, most people submit to this very system in which they in, right? So the teachings of that system become your truth.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? That doesn't mean that the teachings of that system is the truth.
Let me ask you this. So you mentioned white people. We have red people. We have yellow people. We have brown people. We have black people. Where did they come from? And is it important? Or what are your thoughts on what these different classifications are about?
Of people?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
why put a label on them?
It's about divide.
About division. Okay.
It's about division and separating people.
Okay.
When it all boils down
To whose advantage?
to the ruling power. We'll say it like that. To the advantage of the ruling power, those that are in charge.
Okay.
So
I'm going to ask you a question. Y'all know what Whoopi Goldberg said. She got suspended for 2 weeks about her take on the Holocaust, and I believe her words was it was more about race.
She said it wasn't about race.
It was about
That's what
race.
she said.
It's about man's inhumanity against man. Right?
okay.
I couldn't read my own writing, so
No, it's fine.
No. Okay,
She didn't say that.
so let's be 100 what that was, right? The Holocaust and Hitler, right? The whole thing went off the rails because Germany did not like their split on Africa's land. A lot of people don't realize what's going on with that, right? It's not even talked about that much, right? But while we were participating in this world war, right? The real war was going on right in Africa. It was about them colonizing and taking the land from Africa. Now, what really sent Hitler off was they didn't like, they got, the land that they got, the property they got was high in uranium. But at the time, nobody knew what the heck uranium was,
Right.
Or how to use it. You see what I'm saying? And so, push come to shove, France's prime minister wound up getting shot. I think it was called something like the shot rang around the world. Is what they build it, right? They end up killing France's prime minister, hence the things that led into this, right? Okay, so now when we talk about the plan of Hitler and what Hitler was on and why Hitler was targeted the people that he targeted, right? A lot of people got to realize that this is during a time where it was shortly after a time of expelling black people out of these areas, Germany, Russia. You know what I mean? These European areas. There
were black people.
We're fringing on now the takeover from what we considered the Moors, or some would consider the Hebrews, because pretty much one and the same people, right? But it was pretty much a taking of power from the very people, the very Africans that civilized them, that helped build their civilizations.
So
right?
many people don't know that there were black Germans.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
It's funny because I was doing U.S. history. I was reading something about Benjamin Franklin, right? And Benjamin Franklin was talking about people that they should let into the United States, right? And he said something about I read something about him saying they didn't want Germans to come into the United States. They didn't want Germans to come because they were too swirly. They already had overpopulation, and they were too swirly. And I didn't know what swirly meant, right? So if I don't understand the word in what I'm reading, I always go to the dictionary and pull it out so I got context of what it is, right? And swirly meant black, dark skin. So I'm like, hold up, wait a minute. Germans dark skin. It blew my mind. It blew my mind. Like, because I've always known for Germans to be of a lighter skin color. So, and then it went on to say something about Russians. And that and it referred to their skin as I can't think of exactly what it said, but the color of their skin was like her color, maybe a light brown color.
Bronze.
Right, and so saddlebag, I don't know what they said, the definition said, but it was like a light brown, sandy brown, or something like that. And I was like, hold on, wait a minute. Now, Russians is black?
And French.
Yeah, because through the history of migration, I've learned that the French, this is why a lot of religious literature comes from French writers, from those that French wine bearers, there's the very.
Do we buy New Orleans from France?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
it's a French colony.
Okay.
It is a French colony. Yes. I don't know if we bought it, but I know it's a French colony.
Yeah, I don't know who bought it.
Well, they
That's
sold-
right.
they
Don't
sold
know
it.
Who bought it?
There was a price. It was a price tag on it.
Okay.
$50,000, something like that. back then.
Okay.
So what about Whoopi Goldberg?
Yeah, you was getting.
Yeah, you was getting.
Oh, I wanted to ask you, from a woman's perspective, what do you think about that? Do you agree with her, disagree, and tell me why?
Okay, so you're asking me, do I agree with what she said? I believe that what she said has truth to it. I also believe that what she said was only offensive because of her color.
Well, her last name is Jewish. Goldberg is Jewish. I mean,
But she got suspended for 2 weeks. So I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like I felt like the people around her were more offensive by their statements than hers, but they aren't the same complexion or ethnic background as hers.
I think we forgetting who Whoopi Goldberg is.
Jay-Z
For a
says-
minute, Whoopi forgot she was. See, here's
She
the
did.
here's the
She
thing,
did.
man. I don't ever believe Whoopi was necessarily pro-black or for black people like that. And the reason why I say that is because people forget that she was dating Ted Danson and allowed him to come to a party in blackface.
oh yeah,
Dude, and you stood right by him on
That's a
national
mockery.
TV.
Yeah, it is a mockery.
And mock black people with this. You see what I'm saying? So let's be 100. You know what I mean? Whoopi has never been. Because she's a black face on TV, but Whoopi has not been.
she hasn't lived.
Especially who I assumed Whoopi to be from her early comedy, and you know what I mean. She built herself as though she was a pro-black, conscious or a more conscious person. You know what I mean, and then to go the route. She's always said. You see how the stand she took with Monique. You know what I mean? Like, she pretty much was a role type black person, or else, they'll take it from you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I mean, they just kind of did that. No matter what her position
No
is.
matter what your
she
position-
played in the
no matter how
I'm
much-
saying.
Exactly.
She was the original, one of the originals, and she's suspended for having a statement on
That's
something.
silly.
I'm just saying. I don't think what she necessarily said was wrong.
No.
I think she meant maybe something different than how people took it. And I say that to say this. She said that it was not about race and it was about power, manpower, and authority. Basically, that's what she was trying to
Being
get at.
inhumane
And
to a
being
different race.
inhumane. That's true. We've been doing it. Who acts, even in history, in American history, how did they act humane?
They never have.
Exactly. So what was
Savages.
Yeah.
that's how America came about.
When you conquer another
It's the
country, you're
United
supposed
States
to
of
treat them
America.
bad,
They don't
right?
even have a name. It's the United States of America. That means we went to each place and took over the land and called it our own, and we all united it, and it's ours now.
What it was, the Jews told her, you don't have a right to speak and say that because you're not a Jew.
Okay, but I think me personally being who I am, why is she not allowed to have an opinion? They say whatever they want to say about us. They say whatever they want to say. They do whatever they want to do. So
Do they say it publicly?
Yes.
I don't
The
know.
ladies around her were saying it. They was more
They said-
offensive to the
I
Jews than
said
she
that.
was.
Yeah.
Did y'all see the whole thing?
No, I
Joy
didn't.
What's
Reid.
that lady name?
Joy Reid.
She was more offensive. Hey, bring up the whole thing.
I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I'm
They
gonna have to
blamed
watch that.
Whoopi for everything that was said. And I'm not saying that, her
Well-
whole career has been
They were just saying that
right.
you have a
about it.
place.
No.
It's not.
To me, they were saying you have a
No,
place.
but
Exactly. They
but
put
you-
her
you
in
got-
her place.
You have to, that's what I'm saying.
That's what
you have to understand, and that's the point I was trying to make.
Yeah, they put her in her place.
You got to understand, it is not a travesty of what they did to Whoopi because they put her there.
They did.
because
Absolutely.
of how
Absolutely.
she handled us.
Absolutely.
Let's be 100. She got her spot because of how she handled us. You know what I
I'm trying to be
mean?
pro-black now.
Yeah, and now now they try to make
But
it.
was her statement really
No,
pro-black?
no. For one, for
It
one,
was.
even
You said inhumanity to humans. We've been done that with our whole.
here's the
life.
thing.
But that's not what she
even
said.
If her
I'm talking about what
statement
she
was-
said.
I know, but out of context, inhumility to another human race. That's what's happened to us.
But
She was saying this is what Hitler did to the Jews.
I know, but she said it in a general context of stating that there's inhumanity done to humans around the map, and black people were underneath that. The same way. Not we didn't necessarily get murdered the same way or Holocaust, but we got put on slave ships and all this extra stuff and got stolen. It's the same thing. Inhumility to another human race.
So when you say slaves,
I think they took a lot of stuff out of context.
are you talking about the
Turned it into-
transatlantic?
No, the problem is black people can't say nothing about Jews because then you start to dispel their story. You start to
Well,
see.
what about-
you got to get to the real and who they trying to what the knowledge that they want you not to know. You know what I mean? What they don't want people to spread that's in the know that got somewhere and read a little bit. You know what I mean? The
15,
problem is
30, I'm gonna tell you
is we give black people these platforms because they don't know nothing, right? But as they progress in life and start to know something, you see what I'm saying? Now it's about shut up, sit down, or we'll put you down.
I think it's always been that way, though.
Yeah.
But here,
I do. I
They,
think
they only want you
hit- I think
anything that jeopardizes their
their
thinking,
their truth or
Well,
lie.
Period.
This is the problem. I want to reach it. This is the problem. What race was being criticized? That's all you need to know.
From her statement,
What race was being criticized? So you can say this about the Chinese. You can say this about the
The
Indians.
Germans, really? If
right.
you wanted to say who was getting criticized,
from their
the
opinion,
Germans.
but
No,
It was the Germans
It was
that
about
was-
the Jews.
the
No,
Jews.
it wasn't about the Jews. That was getting criticized. She just said
Well, they're just getting killed. I mean,
it wasn't about.
It was not about them.
It wasn't
Or
about
not them, but
Yeah, I mean, it
It
wasn't
was
about.
it was a comparison.
the fact
it was
that they
a
were
comparison.
Jews.
It was a comparison because the original question was about racism, and you can't. To me, you can't put the Jews in the same box with black people.
No,
That's the issue.
I don't think she tried to do that.
that ain't where it went.
Well,
That's
that's
how
what
y'all took it.
that's
Yeah,
what was
no,
I
that
didn't
ain't
take it
how I
that
took
way.
it.
I
That's where
took
it's
it.
perceived.
I
I
took
didn't
it
take
as
it that way
her
either.
expressing what the human race has done to other races of people for centuries and centuries. They were specifically speaking on Jews at the time.
Right.
So when she speaks and responds in a certain way, everybody goes crazy.
But see, that was a problem. She was speaking on Jews.
What about that white lady that was speaking on the Jews? Excuse my French, no, I'm not prejudiced.
Well, here's
The white
there
lady.
was no issue there.
She wasn't speaking on Jews, and I'll tell you why she wasn't speaking on Jews. The same reason
She was speaking on systems.
She was
She was speaking on systems and
power
people.
and
And-
inhumane power.
which draws black people into the
But
equation.
she mentioned Jews.
You gotta
That's
understand what I'm
the
saying.
And you can't put
That's
them
why
in the same.
that's why they got mad.
And you can't put them in the same boat. That's all I just said.
Well, how come everybody is able to have an opinion except for black people?
Exactly.
Why?
Because you're black.
What does the Constitution say?
Because you're black.
No, they don't want to say.
You ain't got no legal standing.
How much percentage?
You black.
No.
As long as you consider yourself black, you man,
No.
we
The
do what we
Constitution-
tell you to
The
do.
Constitution
You
says
property.
that you're a percentage.
Let's be real.
And what percentage is that?
One.
No.
What?
You're a third.
A third.
A third.
Okay,
Yeah,
we talking about the
okay.
Constitution. We talking about the same thing that they're not even respecting. Never mind.
Yeah.
We're not gonna go there.
Well,
That's
I mean-
another topic. That's another topic. I don't
Well,
want to.
I'm just saying,
We talking about the same document.
you ain't
doctrine,
even a human being, Whoopi,
according to them.
right? According to the Constitution, you're not even a human being. How dare you speak?
Guess what? This is why we.
At
need
least
to speak-
Sonny Hoskins
This is why we need to speak more.
just shut her mouth. It was like,
Yeah, but she.
well, she shut her mouth. Just say she can be Texas. I get a raise. Keep on moving. I get a raise. You know.
Well, throw her under the bus. I get my check. She
Yeah.
gets.
But at least, but you know what? At least she
That's
spoke.
how they thinking.
You know? And it's
But
the
here's
problem.
the thing: what she's speaking up, she wasn't speaking up.
I don't think she was
made
speaking
a
up. I think she
statement.
made a statement and it
She
got
made a
turned
statement and it
into
got
what
turned
they
into
wanted it to
something
turn
else.
into.
And don't
Now
get me
she's
wrong,
disrespecting the Jews.
it was a true statement.
There was nothing wrong with what she said.
No,
There
there was
wasn't.
nothing
Okay.
wrong with what she
But
said.
because she was who she is, I guess that's what made her
Yeah.
wrong. Because girl, I don't know her name, the other lady of a different color, race, excuse my French, had a lot to say. Nobody said nothing.
She's Jewish.
She said nothing. They said nothing about nothing that she said.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people speak on black people and things that we've gone through as a people, and it's okay, right? So why are we not allowed to speak, even if it's just an opinion or I don't even know what to call it.
Who told you it was black?
No, I only use that term to help people understand what I mean.
I understand that.
That's yeah.
I understand
That's
you know,
part of the problem.
But that is.
We
What-
can't.
go ahead.
We're
are-
stereotyped.
Yes, we are. Even
still
when we
talking, huh?
speak our minds, after being oppressed, after going through the things we've gone through as a people, we still don't have a voice.
Did your parents raise
Here's
you
the
as a
problem.
black man or did they raise you as a man?
Okay, so here's the problem, right? You're looking at your enemy and saying, "I want you to listen to me." You're looking
Now
at
that is a problem.
You know, you're looking at the
That is
very
a
people
problem.
who colonized you. You're looking at the very people that put you in the class system that you were in, put you at the level of the class system that you were in.
Explain-
Who- society.
Explain
who-
to
who-
the viewers what colonization is for those who don't know.
taking in your land, taking in your land, your property, and your
And your
way of
culture,
life,
yes.
and your way of life,
And
Your
engrafting
culture.
their
Their
plan
own-
and their
Exactly.
way
into
in your life. And about a generation or two, you won't know anything.
Yeah.
Of course.
That's what
Exactly,
colonization
that's
is.
the plan.
The French did this, the British did this, the American did this, who else did it? The Dutch did this.
The Portuguese did
Portu-
it.
okay.
Let's start with who started this.
Who started it?
The Portuguese, the Spaniards,
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, it was the Portuguese and the Spaniards.
And who do they do this to?
Well, that goes back now. Now you're getting into some interesting history, and
Well,
with the
maybe,
ideologies
but here-
that exist on here. I try to stay a little.
Well,
but
let me say this, okay? I'm a gospel preacher, and people think you should just stick, to the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is our history. I've learned more out of here than I've had in history because it made me think about certain things that made me go search for them. Because I'm like, well, if they did that, well, how this happened? Inherited and we're given that, living
I get
living
it.
a life,
So pretty much people got to realize that whatever region of the world you live, it depends on what you end up being.
Right.
So if I was born in Africa or in, you know, the Middle East, I would be Muslim.
Right.
You know, if I was, you know, because I was born here, most people are Christian. You know, you got a diverse group here, so you got all these different versions of
Back to
Christianity.
diversity.
But you go
Yeah.
Christianity for the most part in the U.S., and then you have a melting pot of other religions.
But
that come in.
don't you agree that we all have to start somewhere, and we don't have to make this decision?
I don't falter.
Right.
I don't fault anybody for. See, we all have to start somewhere,
Right.
and like I said,
Absolutely.
even as the Bible teach, you know, you start off as babes in Christ. You
Right.
believe in that these curses that the Bible speaks about are us. You know what I mean? We ultimately curse ourselves because we embody curses that about a book written that writes about us, right?
Right.
And we put
Was-
ourselves in that position. and
Was
it's
it
not
about
us
you?
at all?
Was it about you?
No,
Okay.
I believe they used the pain and the struggle that came from black people. You know, they know exactly what they did to us. But
What was the
that
first thing
about
they?
me? No.
What was the first thing they did to slaves when they got over here? What did they change?
They separated their households. They took the man from the family.
What did they change? Their name.
Their their names.
And what else they take?
Their
Language.
Language.
Their language.
So you would know, right?
That's true.
After generation is gone, I mean, you're a new baby.
You
You're
would
born.
only believe
you're
the
born,
truth
you're
that
born
they
stuff,
gave you to believe.
Here's
Here's the thing, though. That's not everybody's story. That's not everybody in the U or every black person in the U.S. story. A lot of us, we have our ancestry. Our parents told us exactly who we was. It's been passed down for generations and generations. Why? Because the slavery that you speak of or that they taught us about didn't exist in most of our families' lives. Like, they were sharecroppers who got Jewed out of their land. You know, a lot of our family are people who were farmers who were indigenous to this land, who ancestors, and then went into indentured servitude trying to get land back and ended up getting screwed in that department. That's why you have a lot of what they call slave revolts and all these other things.
Yes, because
You
they
see what
were
I'm saying?
taking people
Because
that were
they were-
already
What about
knowledgeable
slavery?
and turned them
What
into-
about slavery
Yes.
of the mind? What about slavery of the mind?
Well, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. By teaching you, right, that you were a slave, that you came on a ship, that you didn't have nothing, that you were uncivilized, and if it wasn't for the Christian values that was taught to you, you would be some kind of in some kind
Going to
of
hell.
leaf,
Yeah, you're going to hell.
in some leaf running around. They civilized you and gave you
fear.
What about the
it
ship?
turned-
Gave you fear.
What about the ship Jesus Christ?
slave ship?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
Was there a slave ship called Jesus Christ?
Was there?
Yes.
That's what they say.
Yes, Jesus.
That's what the history books say. But was it a slave ship or was it a cargo ship?
Well, wherever it involved slaves over here.
Did it? How many slaves did it bring? And did it bring slaves like they say? Because, like I said, now you're talking about conditions, right? And you putting a bunch of slaves piled in on top of each other in the bottom of a slave to get 200, 300 slaves over here at a time at one time. The boats wasn't like that.
Don't add
So
up.
when you look at the boats and how they was made and the years that they was made and the designs that they was made, you know, you get a little different perspective.
So Roots was fabricated?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a made up story.
Yes.
Well, you heard that gospel family?
But
Core family.
But you
Core
don't see
never
anything
existed.
in history that says Roots is a real story. There's nothing to say this came from a real person. These events really happened. It didn't tell
You're
you
right.
that.
Okay.
It never told you that. It didn't even say it was based on a true
So
story.
did.
You know what I mean?
That was back in the 70s.
So I'm saying that don't mean
I
that
was 7
there
when
were
I,
shows in the 70s that tell you based on a true story.
Well, you know, and this is why I start off by what is truth.
Yeah.
You know, and we all have to ask ourselves that, you know, and we're trying to provoke thought here.
Exactly.
You know,
First of all, we have to be okay with asking questions. Too.
Right.
Yeah.
But if everybody makes it so asking questions isn't okay or it's a dumb question, you're going to have a lot of people just sitting there not saying nothing because they're scared to speak up or they're scared to ask because they feel like they're going to be crucified if they ask a question.
Yeah. Or like I said, you also got to look at the Bible. A lot of things that's taught in religion is taught to scare you away from even
Absolutely.
study. If you look at the
Yes,
very
absolutely.
story of Adam and Eve, the principles that come, right? Well, you take the Gnostics who used to think that the Hebrew God was evil because what was his main goal? Was to keep knowledge from you. You see what I'm saying? And when you go to the Adam and Eve story, right? They can eat off of every tree except for what tree?
Of the tree of knowledge.
The tree of knowledge.
The
Why wouldn't God want you to have knowledge?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And rather than just be a slave somewhere, not knowing anything, running dormant in a garden. So that means that the only things you will learn is what's good, and the only person that can teach you that is God, right? God is the only person that can teach you good, right? Now you got to look at what these scenarios represent. You know, these Bibles, ever since they colonized and started making this literature, it was done in the name of your government. You know, they took something that might have been, that came from a pure place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they turned it, used it for control.
Yes.
Right?
That's what they do.
So in that process, a lot of the things
They're still using it today for the
right.
same thing if you interpret it
If
the
you
way,
interpret it the way they
they
want
want
you
you
to
to.
read it,
Right,
yeah, that's
right.
what-
It can be twisted, is what you're saying.
No, what the whole concept, if you look at the underlying story of the Bible, God knows all. God is your government. Government does evil. God kills people. God does. See, here's the thing. Everybody wants to think that the God of that Bible is all good. No evil, no mean, no nothing, right? But yet you created groups of people that you made, right? You didn't teach them any other way, right? Everything that was African, if you look at the stories, everything that was African was demonized in the Bible.
Absolutely.
Everything that was
including the
African.
color black.
In true,
represents
yes.
something bad
Yes.
in their eyes.
Yes, everything in that Bible that was African was demonized. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? And
I follow you.
you know, including the very spiritualities that they took the concepts from. When you're talking about burnt offering, you know.
So what you're saying is the creators, not of this specific version, but just you're saying the creators of this book isn't referring to the God that we know.
Okay,
They're referring
so-
to the
So look at how this goes and
trying
how
to
this
say
split
this.
up. It's crazy
They're-
because this goes back into the history, right? Starting with the divide of these teachings, right? These teachings came about through Hellenization. All right, this is where all of this stuff rose. This is the Ptolemies,
Okay.
right, and they dynasty, right? So for the most part, they created their Serapian Christ, right? A lot of people, and this is, you know, a lot of people don't know this, and this is going to offend a lot of people. I'm sorry, I'm not here to offend anybody, right? But the very start of Christianity started with Serapis in Egypt, right? And the reason why Serapis was made was to give the Greek conquerors who had came into Egypt a god to worship, because at that point everybody was worshiping these black gods. Greece was heavily influenced by Egyptian culture. You know what I mean? So for a long time they were following these principles. Well, Ptolemy wanted a white god for his people to worship, right? So they put together what's called Apis the bull and another and I have all this stuff written down, but
And give them
to give
something
them
they can go to.
something that they can go to, right?
You go on to.
Right.
Yeah.
But then over the course of time, and was trying to get this accepted into these temples, right?
Right.
Into their astrology, and people got to realize what these was. These was not religious temples. These were temples of learning, right? And how the Egyptians worked. They would take a pharaoh or somebody who did great things in their time, right? And they would tell the story of their life through science, through principles of elements and principles of nature, and through astrology. Right? They would incorporate all these things into this story to tell this story, so that way this story can teach you in multiple ways.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? That was the invention of the parable.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? That's where the Bible gets.
But you know what? To be honest with you, I've never heard the things, that you're talking about in the detail that you're talking about, but I do understand, what you're saying. But write down a few websites they can go to, and learn this stuff for themselves.
Okay, so most of mine didn't come from websites. Like there are some good sites that
Right.
you can go to and you can learn this information. I'm pretty sure.
Serapius, that right there.
I'm pretty sure you can find. Well, certain elements about that you could just Google.
Okay.
Like I said, I could give you the story. You can research the history. You Google, it will bring up Serapis, who Serapis was, the first Christians. Like I said, they had Christians before Christ ever existed. You're talking 300. You can find Christians from 300.
Right.
300 BC.
Right.
So 250, somewhere around there. You have Christians. That's what they were called, Christians. You see what I'm saying?
But
they were followers of Serapis.
But this wouldn't be the first time people who are trying to control other races and other nations to try to indoctrinate them to keep them where they are. I mean, look at what 500 years when the first boat came over. Willie Lynch said, if you do what I tell you to do. Well,
we're mixing that up.
Well, no, here's the
Willie Lynch came later.
Well, I'm just saying, but he said, you just follow my recipe, this will work for 300 years, So obviously, Willie Lynch,
It's a long time.
He knew something.
Wow.
But these are the tactics they use, and I'm glad this is why we're having this conversation during the Black History Month, so we can give our viewers, we're provoking thought here. Go get in your books and library,
Read
Yes,
the book.
most definitely. Follow history, and that's what I tell people. Like I said, a lot of this stuff, to give you websites. I'm pretty sure I can find you some websites but I don't. So pretty much how I come to this knowledge. I was a Christian. Heavy Christian, right? And I wanted to know these things for myself. I wanted to be able to defend my faith.
You was a deacon in church, wasn't you?
Yes, I was. I grew up as a junior deacon.
Deacon Ricky.
Before I stopped going to church, I was on my usher board at my church, But and like I said, I wanted to know these things. Like one day, my little brother and my brother-in-law was having a conversation, right? And I had I had knowledge of the Bible and all this, but a lot of the stuff that they were saying, I knew nothing about. So I was like, hold on, wait a minute. How do I know all of this over here from what I grew up, but I know nothing about what they're talking about? So that just sparked me to start studying.
It provoked thought.
Right. It provoked thought. So I wanted to know the history about it. You start with the beginning, right? And I didn't know anybody to watch. I didn't watch any videos or nothing like that. I just had questions in my head, right? So what I would do is when I have a question, I would just look it up, right? Because I started thinking about it in rational time. If this happened, there has to be some trace if it happened on this planet.
Right.
There has to be something. There has to be family. If these people all exist, you can't tell me that every person in the Bible, nobody has a relative that came down through the generations.
Right.
The tangible things of the earth that we can.
So basically, you started asking questions.
I started
seeking.
I started looking for the right question. Because for years
it makes sense.
I was asking questions, but it was just my research. Like I said, when I first started doing this research, anything that went opposite of what I was taught in Christianity, I bagged away from. I didn't want to hear none of that.
Of course,
That ain't nothing but the devil.
Right.
Trying to work his way in. This is what it was.
Satan, huh?
So a lot of this knowledge about things, was going over my head because I was staying in that pocket.
In that pot.
Right? I was staying in that pocket, right? And so then one day, I pray before I go into study and everything, right? And one day I said my prayer before I sat down and started reading and praying that I didn't go to sleep because I have a hard time with staying awoke reading books, right? Right. But something in me said, and it just voice out the blue. It was like, how you gonna learn if you're not reading what I teach you, what I'm trying to show you? If you're not paying attention to what I'm trying to show you, is what it said. Kind of came over me, and I was just like, huh? See, this is the second time I've heard a voice like that. When I first started this, right? My brother used to always talk about, they were black, the people in the Bible was black, and I really didn't have context on whether they was black or white. I was the Christian, so that didn't matter. You know what I mean?
You was a good Christian, huh?
Yeah.
You paid your tithes,
all of that.
Yeah.
All of that. So one day I was just sitting around and I just came from work, I took a shower and getting ready to relax, and just out the blue, it was like, your brother wasn't wrong. Right? No, it said, he wasn't wrong, is what it said. And I'm thinking, who? It was like, Bobby. That's what this voice said to me. And I was like, okay, my little brother. So I was like, huh? So I started researching in. But like I said, a couple years go by and I'm still in the same place. I know more about the story.
But you still.
But I'm still. It's a lot that's going on. All the information against it comes. I was like,
Of course.
block it.
That voice you heard, you think that was your conscience?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna move into something else real quick. But when I just I would like to say this. When I first came over to the department a couple years ago, everybody told me, avoid Ricky.
Yeah, because
Ricky's crazy.
Because we were all Christian and we were all Christian friends, right? And so it's crazy because a couple of the brothers that we work with had just got back into church, and I was in church for years, so it was like, and coming back to church, so it was like, and trying to come into this. So as we growing, once I got over the barrier, right, and really the barrier came with studying Satan and where Satan come from and that principle and what Satan is, right? That kind of broke the shield.
Okay.
Right? Because before that's of the devil, we give all these attributes to the devil, but exactly how many of us know what is the devil? Where did the devil come from? How did the devil come into being?
You always read about God.
You know what I mean? You always read about God, and the opposite of God is the devil, right? But God is stronger than the devil, but the devil got just as much power as God. It was, so I needed to.
It didn't make sense.
And none of it made sense.
I get that.
When you really look at it, none of it makes sense. You know what I mean? You can try to rationalize it with your thinking and your ideology, but none of it makes sense.
How many people
and it don't ever work?
How many people will be honest and say, because we like to know everything, but nobody gonna say I don't know. But there's nothing wrong with not knowing, because we're introducing something, that we've never talked about on our videos, that I was kind of skeptical. But I want to shift gears here real quick,
Which verse? 15.
Read verse 15 first.
Okay. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
Okay, when you get a chance, read the whole book of Deuteronomy chapter 28. This is verse 15, verses 1 through 14. He tells the children of Israel, all these things can be yours if you do what I say. Okay. Verse 15 says, but if you do not hearken to what I say, this is going to happen to you. I want you to read verses 30 through 32.
Thou shalt betroth a wife,
Mm-hmm.
and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Sorry. I don't want to say this word, but I'm going to say it. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face.
It's just a donkey.
I know, but I just, because I know how you are with the words. Okay. And shall not be restored by thee.
Okay, so they're going to be robbed. They're going to take their stuff.
Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them.
Okay, now read.
Okay.
I'm come back to you. Read verse 36 through 37.
The Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, until a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone, and thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword.
What's the astonishment in a byword? Give me a byword.
A byword, like you won't be called your name, you'll be called nigga.
Something else other than your name.
Like you'll be called nigga instead of being called your name.
A
Like
proverb.
you know.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Among all nations, whether the Lord shall lead thee, thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shall gather but little in, which is basically kind of what's happening now, but never mind. For the locust shall consume it.
Moses put forth the Constitution before the people, and they agreed. We don't want to go, you go talk for us. They agreed they would keep the law. And he just told them this was going to happen if you do, and it's going to happen if you don't. I want you to read these last two verses right here.
Which one?
67, 68.
In the morning thou shalt say, would that it were evening, and at evening thou shalt say, would that it of morning. For the fear of thine heart, wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see.
So you live in fear. Keep reading.
And Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spoke unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and shall be sold unto your enemies, for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
So you're saying the Bible foretold that the tribe of Judah will be shipped into captivity to the four corners of the world during the transatlantic slave trade. So here's the deal. This is why I read that.
Hold on. Let's go with a little more history.
Saul was taught.
Okay, right. And that's what we all was taught.
Right.
Right. There's nothing wrong with believing that, because that I for a long time
Right.
I believed that. Right. And true enough, you have commentaries in that Bible from a guy named Moses. Right. But most of the writings of the Old Testament, the Talmud, right? The Talmud was
This is not a name. This
right,
is, yeah.
but was a guy named Rashid. And if you ever look up Rashi, right, just look up Rashi, it'll tell you Rashi is in all religious literature. He's inspired by all. This is the guy that started the commentary of the first 4 books of Moses, and he did it from astrology, a book called the Pentateuch. So
I'll check into it back so we can check it out. But
Yeah.
we're gonna move on. What I was trying to do is I was showing you a reference, a biblical reference. For time's sakes, we drew a connection with this.
yes, this is what. That's what I said. Hold on. So this is what I said. When you know a little more about the history and the history of the people that this very literature come from, I don't think you would hold it as in high regard as you. Now, a lot of this comes directly from what's called the Egyptian Book of the Dead. A lot of it. The Tablets of Thoth. A lot of it. A lot of it is almost word for word.
But we still have to compare. But for time's sake, I think I made a connection where I identify these people. I identify these people in here as the Jews. That was my whole, or Hebrews. That was my whole argument on that.
Well, let's go to the original.
Okay.
That's the original meaning of the word Hebrew. This is where the name came from. A lot of people get these things mixed up. Where did they cross over from? You're talking about, you got to look at where the literature comes from. The literature comes from Carth, Spain, that area. So who was the ones that crossed over? It was what they call the Moroccans, right? Or the Moors, right? And from Morocco. But that's the misconception. That itself, Moors or Moroccans, Moors is a nickname itself.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? These people called themselves Atlantean. I see a lot of references where they refer to them as Atlanteans or stuff like that. When you follow who the Atlanteans were, they were followers of Thoth and teachings of Thoth. Thoth was an Atlantean. He's in all the Egyptian mythology. He's in Egyptian history.
Okay. So I want to deal with this because I wanted to establish Whoopi Goldberg's what she said. It was taken. They wanted to take their attention off of who she thought was the Jews. So I'm telling you that they're not the real Jews here. These are not real Jews. They're not the original people.
See,
so that would made it offensive now?
Yeah.
Or okay.
Well, let's okay. See that, I think that's where the context is, right? A lot of black people think that the black people were the Jews. I don't believe that.
No.
Hold on, wait a minute. It's not a race thing, but
which is what she said.
right. It's not a race thing.
did say
Jews
that.
was not a race thing. It was Jews of different colors, right? There were white people that were following this Hebrew faith. All right, let's put it like that.
I'm talking about DNA. See, I'm going to totally different. I'm talking about DNA.
That term Jew is for a specific group of people who I believe are the Jews. They are the Jews. They were wine bearers. They're French. They're Spaniard. Spaniard. They were the upper class rich muds that was loaning people money. They are what became your bankers, your German bankers. This is the very people that the Jew. But
where are they from?
They made that.
Where are they from?
Their coat of arms. That's what the Jews are.
But where are they from? Give me genealogy.
So Rashid, who was the progenitor of all of this, was from France.
Okay.
He was a French wine bearer. Okay. He was one of the ones that the Catholic Church commissioned to send his army to fight in the Crusades.
I believe that.
You see what I'm saying?
So we've been hearing lately in states like Texas, they want to remove this critical race from history. In closing arguments, give me your opinion on critical race.
I didn't understand that.
Yeah, I don't either. Can you?
Well, critical race theory is a cross-disciplinary intellectual and social movement of civil rights scholars and activists who seek to examine the intersection of race and law in the USA and to challenge mainstream American liberal approaches.
Okay, so they pretty much trying to combat the prejudice system that we are. See, here's the thing, man. We can't. There's no way to fix the system.
That's what I was gonna say. You can't fix things.
You can't fix it because it was built on something that was detrimental to you. Right. So in order for it to be any way conducive for black people, you have to tear it down and rebuild it over.
Okay.
And that's just what it is. You also have to fix the thinking of the programming of the people in this country.
Right.
In this system, because you are
so what
now
exactly
because
are
of
they trying to implement?
No, they're trying to. they're trying to remove from the history books
Right.
slavery.
That's
How
because
they
it
treated-
didn't happen the
They-
way
they
that you
should
think
remove
it
it.
did.
They should remove
They
it.
should remove it. It was a lie. It was made up by Germans.
Well,
Let's be honest.
we didn't make it up.
Our slave history was made up by Germans. You let somebody else tell you how you got in the predicament you in, and you started believing it. And though that was the case for a small few people, right? That wasn't the case for the masses. And most people couldn't identify with that. And a lot of people, when they went back to their parents, they learned this stuff in the 60s and 70s. That's when this stuff came. That's when you started learning about your slave.
Okay,
So let me-
they're trying to remove
from the history
certain
books.
things from the history books.
No, any
Just
negative thing
about
that was
racism.
done to black people,
So this
they
is
wanted to
targeting
remove that.
just black people.
right? They want to remove. it.
Yep.
Okay, I have mixed feelings about that
Okay.
because, from one perspective, removing it can do two things.
Okay.
It can create an uproar in people who have already been taught a certain thing or know certain things about history. So you're going to make certain people feel as though you're trying to erase certain things that are
Or cover up something.
or cover up certain things that did take place. Okay. Now, the other aspect of it is, are you removing it because you're tired of us talking about it, or you like, what are you? Why is that? Why even in that? Why are we still being targeted? They're not saying
Maybe
they're not
we
saying
should remove
delete.
it. Maybe we should.
Maybe
teach
we should
both
put it
aspects.
somewhere, or maybe we should put it somewhere, but not.
How they did Pluto? It's Planet X now.
I don't know.
It's not
I don't
going.
know.
It's
I
just
don't
another
think.
name.
Yeah.
I don't know how I
History.
feel about this.
Not
I am
quite
going
a
to
planet.
research more, but just
Not
from
quite a
looking
planet.
from what
Yeah.
you described, it
But
just
another
seems
planet
like it
showed
could
up.
create a little more chaos.
What
It
about-
seems
what-
like it could,
what
because
about-
it's like
what about-
now you're trying to take either you lied about what happened and you're trying to
Well, you
cover
know
up
they
the
lied about
lie.
what happened, you
Of
know?
course, but like, what's the real reason?
Well, what about reparations?
That's what I was getting.
So
to.
the-
We're not
So-
getting no reparations if they
so-
take it out.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
so they
Well,
removed
well,
critical
So they
race.
removed
Now
it.
you
Hold on.
can't
So now we
say
can't get
Right.
reparations.
So now you can't.
say-
Yeah. So now you
So
don't.
it just
but-
creates
So
a
no, they
Here's
should
the
not
thing.
remove it.
So
Here's
like
the
the thing.
thing.
Sovereign
Maybe you.
title then and quit calling me black.
Yes.
If you want to remove slavery,
Call us
I'm not
by
black.
our names.
So
There you go.
So you can't say
But
I'm
that's
American.
us. That's us. We started calling ourselves that. You know what I mean? We started calling ourselves.
I don't
black.
think we called it. That's what they called us.
Hold on. When did people first started calling themselves black?
They call us Negroes.
Before
African
then.
Americans.
Well, hold on. Right. Before we was calling ourselves black, we was calling ourselves Negro.
We were.
When did we start calling ourselves black? How many people know that?
I don't.
70s, 80s.
I think you're right.
60s.
60.
Okay.
Black Power. Stokely Carmichael.
Black Panthers.
That's how we started calling that's
In
how
the
we started
60s.
referring to ourselves.
Okay.
Now, look at who Stokely Carmichael is. When he did that, when he first started hollering Black Power, he was standing in a meeting. It was an interview with Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King, they was talking to Martin Luther King, and then he jumps in and with his Black Power movement stuff. Now, if you pay attention, right? I watched this video. If you pay attention, Martin did not like that at all.
He should-
And
he
the
was-
very second he got a chance to talk again, the first thing he said is, "I don't like that word black."
Because he was talking
People
about the
weren't
word.
paying attention.
People
But
were
Stokely
taught not to
Carmichael
like
started
themselves.
us up on a. He started us on. He gave us a chant, Black Power, right?
Kind of like Black Lives Matter, huh?
Black Power, and then it was just reverberated at the Olympics when the men put the fist up. You know what I mean? The Black Power statement. That's what started black people to calling themselves black.
What is wrong
And
with
then
black?
Okay, so I tell you this. I can show you better than I can tell you. Let's look up the.
Well, you know, let's
definition.
Don't do that part two.
let's
Yeah,
say-
part two.
Next week, we be back.
Hold on. Well, you know, thank
Part
you, Torah
two.
fans, gospel family. You know, we start off this segment with what is truth. You know, you have to.
I'm sorry if I offended anybody. I'm so sorry.
When it comes to
I'm so
truth,
sorry.
remember, it is your truth, how you see it, your background, your family's background, and how bad you want to know how bad do you even want to know it? Are you willing to put, days, weeks, and years into study?
Some people put their whole lives into it.
Or
Hey,
are you just willing,
I
to
see
take
how.
somebody's
Yeah, I
word
do.
This
for
is
it
a life.
and say, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But shalom.